just wanna ride my bike, yeah. I'm just sick of always watching the news. I just wanna go outside, yeah. Spend a weekend way up top with a view.
Hey, what is up everybody? You're listening to another episode of The Rim Break. My name is Albert and I am on my bike right now. So today, as you can tell from the title, we're learning about Lagunitas Brewing Company. So just a little bit about Lagunitas. Lagunitas produces beer. It was started by Tony Magee in 1993. They produce a variety of different beers. Depending on the season, certain beers are made and sold to the public. So there's a lot of like limited releases and super rare beers that they only sell for certain like seasons, which is pretty interesting. Makes it really fun when you see a new beer that they sell in the stores. So yeah, they're pretty creative with their releases. So it's very different. But let's define some important terms. So craft brewers are small breweries or small brewers. Dang, I'm getting a little tripped up here. But the first word that we're going to define is craft brewers, and they are small brewers. And small is defined as an annual production of 6 million barrels of beer or less, approximately 3% of U.S. annual sales. Beer production is attributed to a brewer's according to the rules of alternating proprietorships. So just small, they don't make that much beer. Independent is defined as less than 25% of the craft breweries owned or controlled or equivalent economic interest by a beverage alcohol industry member that is not itself the craft brewer. So nobody bought them out yet. And or no big brewer brought them out. So they're still pretty small. They're like medium-ish size. And a brewer is defined as having a TB, Tax and Trade Bureau notice, which allows them to make beer legally. Some qualities of a craft brewer is that they're more innovative with their products, using traditional ingredients, but also adding some wacky new flavors to them to help distinguish their beers from the crowd. Also, they're pretty heavily involved with community service, volunteering, sponsoring events, etc. So now that we have a basic understanding of what a craft brewery is, let's get right into things. So first off, almost all brewers that start up their brewing organically started off as a home brewer, then craft brewing. And if they get bought out, they actually lose the craft label and they can't use that word with their beers. And Lagunitas is a prime example of this. They started off home brewing, then classified as a craft brewer. And then when they sold out to Heineken, they eventually lost their craft brewery title and they cannot call their beer craft beer, I believe. But yes, when these larger beer companies buy up the landscape of smaller craft brewers, it creates an illusion of choice to customers, similar to the eyeglass industry. Luxottica, they own a lot of the popular brands like Oakley and Ray-Ban and other designer brands. So it may seem that there are a lot of options out there, but in reality, it's just one umbrella company being a monopoly and dominating the field. So the next time we're in the store at the beer aisle, it may seem that there are like 100 different options from 100 different companies, but it's more like 3 to 5 major labels owning all of the brands, and then all the independent craft breweries are truly the unique players, and that's usually local to where you're at. So some of the largest beer companies in the world consist of Anheuser-Busch InBev, Heineken, China Resource Snow Breweries, Carlsberg, and Molson Coors Brewing, just to name a few. So the word, or the name Lagunitas, it's pretty interesting. So yeah, he just got inspired by like one of the smallest things. He just liked the name Lagunitas. So Magee was brewing beer in a neighboring town next to Lagunitas. And Magee liked it, and he just liked the town name, and he just ran with it. The equipment that he got also had Lagunitas on it, so it just made sense to just leave it and call his company Lagunitas. So yeah, it's just it's pretty weird. He just liked the name. There was no like spiritual journey that he had to go through to find a name, and he made it work. But it just really shows that it comes down to how well you can brand a product. And I really do think that's where Lagunitas dominates this market. They're pretty clever. They have a lot of bold ways of storytelling, and I think they're definitely a purple cow in the beer industry. When you walk into the beer aisle, you can definitely spot out the Lagunitas branding from all the other companies. So I think they do have some really solid branding. Also, I want to take a look at the beer industry. So the beer industry is a slowing industry, and it's not the best time to be brewing beer. As of recently, a lot of younger people are more interested in hard liquor. Comparing the consumption per person from 2010 to 2017. In 2010, consumption was 80.2 liters per person, and that fell to 72.4 liters per person in 2017. And and also the sales of alcohol dropped, or of beer in the alcohol industry dropped from 56% in 1999 to 45.5% in 2018. So yeah, people are just not buying as much beer. And this is kind of focusing on like the bigger beer companies, but also the craft beers are also taking a hit too, but not as dramatic as these bigger labels. Yeah, because people just are not really liking the cheap beer scene right now, or just my customer demographic as a millennial. I definitely do see a lot of people moving towards like the smaller independent brewers, which is really cool. Supporting those small businesses, which is really nice. And yeah, you just get a better product, better tasting product if you go with something more local. Yeah, so the microbrews, smaller brewers they just have more personality and story behind them. Also a more unique flavor. Some backstory on Lagunitas. Started in 1999. The founder, Tony Magee, started dabbling with making beer. He started off with a homebrew kit, kept experimenting over the time. This hobby kept growing, and Magee was making beer at home on a stovetop, and then some stray wort liquid extracted from the mashing process during the brew spilt out the back, and then when Thanksgiving came around, it totally burnt the turkey. So yeah, a little fire caught the turkey on fire and burnt it to a crisp. So after that, his wife asked him to take his hobby elsewhere, and so Magee moved his hobby to a storage shed in the town of Forest Knolls, California, a town next to Lagunitas. And yeah, as we said earlier, Magee liked the name Lagunitas and ran with it, and he just kept practicing and making beer. The operation eventually grew too large for the storage shed, and he needed to scale up. So he moved his operation to Petaluma, scaling up as time progressed, and he wanted to expand to more areas. Lagunitas eventually opened up a brewery in Chicago to fulfill the eastern side of America's needs. Expansion west was in Seattle, Washington, and Azusa, California. But I'll put a asterisk right next to Azusa because, there's some interesting things that are going on there right now. But Lagunitas is participating in a more global scale now, thanks to Heineken International for purchasing them they purchased 50% of the company in 2015, and then they purchased the rest of it in 2017. So a lot of, in recent news, they're just getting bought up. A lot of action as of recently with this brewery. Let's see what else I got on my notes. So the proper and full name is Lagunitas Brewing Company. Their motto is Beer Speaks, People Mumble, headquartered in Petaluma, California, founded by Tony Magee. They're privately held and owned by Heineken International. They are valued at $1 billion when they sold the rest of the company to Heineken in 2017. They have 4 tap rooms, but 3 are open. And the 3 that are open are Seattle, Petaluma, and Chicago. And the Azusa, California one is currently closed due to some legal stuff, but they are looking to reopen it. Also, employees. So they had about 900 employees, and the number is going down due to budget cuts. And they had to cut 12% of their staff. It's pretty challenging to be Lagunitas right now. They also had a recent change in leadership from the original founder in 2015. Tony Magee to the new CEO, Maria Stipp. Stipp was previously an executive for an automated kiosk business and video game manufacturer, and she wanted to help manage the brewer's growth. The craft beer industry is a slowing industry. It's challenging to keep this business afloat in a situation like this. Thus, it's pretty hard to expand because there's less demand for the product. So these budget cuts were very necessary to trim the fat of the company. Their key product is they brew beer, host music events, volunteer, help out with local community. Something unique that I found in them was they're very, how would I word this? So they put a strong emphasis on storytelling and communicating with other people rather than just everything's about the beer. And they use beer as a lubricant for social intercourse. It's not about the beer, but more about the friends that you make. So in short, the beer industry is slowing down. People are buying less beer. There's an illusion of choice where larger beer companies buy out many of the smaller breweries. A craft brewer is a small brewer. Lagunitas is named after a town in California because Magee thought it sounded cool. Lagunitas is owned by Heineken, and the Azusa tap room is closed for now, but they are working to get it open soon. Lagunitas recently switched up leadership from Magee to Stipp in 2015, and there are just a lot of challenges for Lagunitas from a leadership standpoint and just recent layoffs. So yeah, thanks again for listening to the podcast. Shout outs to Lagunitas because their beer is pretty tasty. Share the podcast with 2 of your friends. Yeah, that's pretty easy. Click the share button. It's pretty easy to share it with somebody now. We're definitely growing as a podcast. Also, shout out to Sam Parr of The Hustle, the CEO of The Hustle newsletter. I tweeted at him. He responded and retweeted my tweet to him. So, yeah.